When I think about human resources today, I cannot see it only as the department that hires people, prepares contract, or organizes training sessions. Of course, all of those responsibilities still matter, and they matter a lot. But in the current business world, HR has become something much, much bigger. HR is now one of the central areas that helps organizations survive, adapt, and grow in the middle of digital transformation. And I would like to begin with this important idea. Digital transformation is not only about technology. It is not only about buying new software, using artificial intelligence, automating processes, or moving documents to the cloud. Digital transformation is, above all, a human transformation. Technology may change the way we work, but people are the ones who give meaning, direction, and value to the change. This is why one of the most important questions HR sparks today. Do we have the right people with the right skills in the right roles for the future we are trying to build? This question sounds simple, but it is actually very, very deep. It forces us to look at the present and the future at the same time. It asks us to understand what the organization is today, but also what it wants to become tomorrow. For many years, human resources was seen mainly as an administrative function. It was the place where employees went when they had a contract issue, a vacation request, or maybe a payroll problem. But that view is no longer enough. Today, HR must understand the business strategy. It must understand technology. It must understand culture. And most importantly, it must understand people. Dave Ulrich, one of the most recognized authors in modern human resources theory, explains that HR professionals must act as strategic partners, administrative experts, employee champions, and change agents. I find this idea very useful because it shows that HR cannot stay it only in one role. HR needs to operate at different levels. It must be efficient in processes, but also sensitive to people. It must support employees, but also help leadership make strategic decisions. It must care about the present, but also prepare the organization for the future. In the digital era, HR has to connect talent, technology, culture, and performance. This means that human resources needs to identify what skills the organization already has, what skills are missing, and which roles will become critical in the near future. In other words, HR must become a kind of organizational radar. It must detect risks before they become crises. It must notice gaps before they become barriers. And it must prepare people before change becomes urgent. One of the biggest challenges HR faces today is the development of digital skills. And here I want to be very clear. Digital skills are not only about knowing how to use a computer or how to open an application. Digital skills are much broader. They include the ability to search for information, evaluate information, communicate through digital channels, create digital content, protect data, solve problems, and make responsible decisions using digital tools. The European Commission's DigComp framework is very helpful here because it organizes digital competences into five major areas. First of them, information and data literacy. Second, communication and collaboration. Third, digital content creation. Fourth, safety. And finally, and problem solving. I like this framework because it reminds us that the digital literacy is not a single ability. It is not just I know how to use technology. It is whole set of abilities that allow people to participate intelligently and responsibly in a digital workplace. I usually explain digital skills as if they were a language. Some people only know basic vocabulary. They can understand simple instructions, send a message, open a file, or join a video. Others can have more complex conversations in that language. They can analyze data, work with platforms, solve digital problems, and collaborate with others. And then there are people who can write, lead, design, and innovate in that language. They can create digital strategies, evaluate risks, and guide transformation. This comparison helps because it prevents us from thinking that everyone must become an expert in everything. Not every employee needs to become a data scientist. Not every manager needs to become a software engineer. But every person in the organization needs a level of digital competence that matches their responsibilities with their skills. Today, digital skills matter for everyone. They are no longer exclusive to the IT department. A sales executive uses CRM platforms to understand clients. A finance analyst works with dashboards and data visualization. A teacher uses learning management systems. A lawyer reviews digital evidence. A marketing coordinator uses analytics and content platforms. A manager makes decisions based on information that comes from digital systems. So, when we say that digital competence is now a basic requirement for employability and organizational performance, we are not exaggerating. Employees who lack digital skills may become more dependent, slower, less autonomous, and more vulnerable to displacement. And managers who lack digital skills may make poor decisions because they do not fully understand the tools, the data, the risks behind the digital transformation. But there I want to add something very important. Digital competence is not only technical, it is also ethical. For example, a manager doesn't need to know how to program an artificial intelligence system, but that manager should understand what AI can do, what AI cannot do, and what risks appears when AI is not used without human judgment. A manager must be able to ask good questions. Is this data reliable? Is this decision fair? Are we respecting privacy? Are we creating bias? Are we using technology to support people or to control them excessively? That is why I believe the future doesn't belong only to people who use technology, but to people who understand how to work wisely with technology. To make digital skills easier to understand, we can classify them into three levels: basic, intermediate, and advanced. This classification is useful because it helps HR align skills with roles and responsibilities. Again, the point is not to label people as good or bad. The point is to understand what each role actually needs. At the basic level, digital skills include the ability to use email, cloud storage, video calls, calendars, collaborative documents, digital forms, messaging platforms, and basic cybersecurity practices. They also include responsible online behavior, password protection, identifying suspicious links, and understanding basic data privacy rules. At this stage, employees are expected to perform daily tasks with autonomy and safety. The focus is not yet innovation. The focus is confidence, responsibility, and operational efficiency. For example, an administrative assistant, an entry level employee, front desk personnel, operational staff, junior sales representatives, and support roles usually need this level of competence. They must be able to work comfortably with every digital tools. And I would say that basic digital competence is the new workplace literacy. In the past, being able to read and write was the foundation for participating in organizational life. Today, we still need reading and writing, of course, but we also need digital reading and digital writing. We need to know how to read a dashboard, how to write an email professionally, obviously, how to interpret a notification, how to collaborate in a shared document, and how to protect basic information. Everything is changing. At the intermediate level, digital skills involve more than using tools. Here, employees being to interpret information, manage digital workflows, use CRM or ERP systems, create dashboards, collaborate in hybrid teams, apply AI tools responsibly, and improve productivity through digital platforms. In this stage, employees are not only users, they become problem solvers. They can identify inefficiencies, propose improvements, and translate digital information into business decisions. This level is usually needed by supervisors, team leaders, HR generalists, sales managers, marketing coordinators, finance analysts, operations managers, and project managers. For example, imagine a sales manager who uses a CRM system. At a basic level, that person may know how to enter client information, but at intermediate level, the sales manager can analyze patterns, identify which clients are more likely to buy, detect weaknesses in the sales process, and make better decisions based on data. That is a very different kind of digital competence. Or, instead of it, imagine an HR generalist. At the basic level, they may know how to use an human resources platform, but at an intermediate level, they can use that platform to analyze turnover, evaluate training needs, identify skill gaps, and propose development programs. The tool is the same, but the level of thinking is different. At the advanced level, digital skills include the capacity to design digital strategies, manage data driven decisions, understand AI systems, lead automation projects, evaluate cybersecurity risks, govern digital transformation, and align technology with business models. At this level, professionals don't simply use tools. They shape the digital direction of the organization. They are responsible for innovation, transformation, governance, and long term competitiveness. Roles that usually require this level include Chief Digital Officer, Chief Technology Officer, HR Director, Digital Transformation Manager, Data Manager, Innovation Director, Senior Executives, and Strategic Consultants. Advanced digital competence is not about knowing every tool. That would be impossible, being honest, because tools change constantly. Advanced digital competence is about understanding how technology changes strategy, people, risk, and value. A senior leader doesn't need to know every technical detail, but they must understand the consequences of technological decisions. This is where HR plays a crucial role. Human resources must link digital competency levels with roles and responsibilities. Every role should have a clear digital expectation. An entry level employee may need to use digital platforms correctly and protect information. A team leader may need to interpret data and guide digital collaboration. A senior manager may need to make decisions about automation, AI adoption, digital risk, investment, and talent development. This alignment prevents two common mistakes. The first of them is overtraining people in skills they will not use. Sometimes organizations invest in complicated training programs that do not match real work. Employees become overwhelmed, and the training does not create value. The second mistake is under preparing people for responsibilities that demand stronger digital judgment. This is dangerous because people may be promoted or assigned roles without having the digital competence they need. So, the practical question HR department should ask is, what level of digital competence does this role need in order to perform responsibly and create value? Basic level means daily digital operations. Intermediate level means digital collaboration and process improvement. Advanced level means digital strategy, innovation, governance, and transformation. Now, once human resources identifies these levels, the next major challenge is reskilling and upskilling the job. These two words are often used together, but they are not exactly the same. Upskilling means improving the skills employees are already used in the current roles. Reskilling means preparing employees for new roles or substantially changed responsibilities. Both are essential because digital transformation changes tasks faster than traditional training models can respond. In the past, a person could learn a profession enter an organization and use the same skills for many years. Today, that is much less common. Skills expire faster, tools change faster, business models change faster, and employees need to learn continuously. Peter Senge, in the fifth discipline, described learning organization as the place as a places where people continually expand their capacity to create the results they truly desire. Think this idea is very relevant today because organization can't remain competitive if learning is occasional, slow, or disconnected from strategy. The best organization do not wait until skills become obsolete. They build learning into the rhythm of work. Learning is not something that happens only once a year in a formal training session. Learning happens through mentoring, feedback, projects, experimentation, peer collaboration, digital platforms, coaching, and real challenges. For human resources department, this means training cannot be generic. It must be connected to the organization's future. If the company wants to become more data driven, HR must support data literacy. If the company wants to adopt AI, HR must support AI awareness, ethical AI use, and role redesign. If the company wants to improve cybersecurity, HR must help create habits of digital safety. But there is another part of the conversation that is just as important: talent planning. Talent planning is the systematic process of identify current and future workforce needs, analyzing existing capabilities, detecting skill gaps, and preparing people for critical roles. It connects business strategy with human capacity. In simple terms, in simple words, talent planning asks, where is the organization going? What capabilities will it need? Who has those capabilities now? Who can develop them? And what risks appear if key people leave? I like to say that talent planning is the organization's way of not improvising its future. Without talent planning, organizations react too late. They discover skill gaps when projects fail. They notice leadership gaps when a manager resigns. They realize they lack digital talent when competitors have already moved faster. Talent planning turns uncertainty into preparation. It does not eliminate risk, but it makes the organization more resilient. One of the most important parts of talent planning is succession. Succession management is the process of identifying and developing people who can occupy key positions in the close future. But it is important to clarify that succession management is not just naming a replacement. It is not simple saying, if this director leaves, this person will take the role. That could be considered very simple. A strong succession process evaluates performance, potential, readiness, values, leadership skills, and future organizational needs. It asks whether a person is already now, ready soon, or ready later. It also asks what kind of development that person needs before assuming a critical role. Effective succession management usually includes identifying critical roles, defining such success profiles, uh, evaluating internal talent, creating development, or preparing emergency replacements. Obviously, we need to add monitoring progress over time. Authors such as William Rothwell emphasize that succession planning should be systematic, long term, and connected to organizational strategy. It should not be a private list hidden in a drawer. It should be a living process that develops people before the vacancy appears. I like the metaphor used in this representation. A company without succession planning is like a plane without a copilot. Everything may look fine until the moment leadership continuity is needed. And when that moment arrives, improvisation can become very expensive. Designing a succession planning program begins by identifying which positions are truly critical. These are not always the highest ranking positions. Sometimes the most critical roles are technical, operational, relational, or highly specialized. For example, a company may depend heavily on one person who understands a key system, one person who manages a major client relationship, or one person who holds essential institutional knowledge. After identifying critical roles, human resources must define the competencies required for each one. These competencies may include technical expertise, leadership capacity, ethical judgment, digital skills, communication, strategic thinking, and emotional intelligence. Then, HR must assess current talent. Who has potential? Who has performance? Who is ready now? Who needs 1 or 2 years of development? Who needs mentoring? Who needs exposure to different areas of the business? This is where individual development plans become important. Succession planning is not useful if it only identifies names. It must create development action. This may include mentoring, coaching, stretch assignments, leadership programs, project participation, job rotation, certifications, or digital training. Another key element is the talent development budget. A talent development budget is the financial plan that supports learning, reskilling, leadership development, coaching, certifications, digital training, mentoring, and career mobility. Without a budget, talent development becomes only a good intention. Think I think this is very important because many organizations say that people are their most important asset, but at the end, their budgets do not always reflect that statement. If talent is truly strategic, the talent development needs resources, it needs time, it needs technology, it needs leadership commitment. The budget should be aligned with the strategic priorities. If the company wants to become more digital, the budget must support digital literacy, data skills, cybersecurity, AI training, and leadership development for digital transformation. If the organization wants to expand internationally, the budget may include language training, intercultural competence, and global leadership skills. If the organization wants innovation only, the budget should support creativity, experimentation, and cross-functional learning. Talent planning is something crazy. Talent planning also requires a contingency plan. A contingency plan for talent prepares the organization for unexpected resignations, illness, burnout, internal conflicts, market disruption, or sudden business growth. This is the uncomfortable part of HR planning, but it is very necessary. Human resources must prepare not only for the ideal scenario when everything is happening good, but also for the difficult one. What happens if a key manager resigns tomorrow? What happens if a digital transformation leader leaves in the middle of a project, or I don't know, is just going out? What happens if burnout increases in a critical team? What happens if a new competitor hires several of our best employees? A good contingency plan identifies emergency replacement, temporary responsibilities, external hiring options, internal mobility opportunities, and knowledge transfer mechanism. It protects the organization from depending too much on one person. Finally, all of this leads us to the idea of building a talent pipeline. A talent pipeline is a continuous flow of preparing, developing, and potential candidates for current and future roles. It includes internal employees, high potential workers, trainees, interns, alumni, external candidates, professional networks, and partnerships with universities or training providers. Building a talent pipeline is not the same as recruitment. We know this word often begins when there is a vacancy. A talent pipeline begins before the vacancy exists. It is more strategic, more proactive, and more connected to the future. To build a strong talent pipeline, human resources must work on employer branding, career paths, internal mobility, mentoring, leadership development, inclusive opportunities, and continuous skills mapping. People need to see that the organization offers growth. They need to understand that learning is a part of the culture. They need to feel that development is not only for a privileged few, but part of a broader commitment to the human potential. In the digital era, a strong talent pipeline must include people who can learn quickly, collaborate across functions, use technology responsibly, and adapt to roles that may not even exist yet. That is one of the most fascinating and difficult parts of the EHR today. We are preparing people for a future that is still being invented. So, if I had to summarize the message of this content in a human way, in a focused way, I would say this: HR today is not only about filling positions, it is about preparing people and organizations for change. It is about making sure that technology doesn't leave people behind. It is about transforming fear into learning, uncertainty into preparation, and talent into long term value.